traffic impact study, and we have a copy of the staff analysis. And I would note that we have received 10 written comments, and they are included in your paperless packet. Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Hutt, once again.
Good evening. Again, for the record, David Hutt, a local attorney with Morris James. I did want to note before I went any further, this, because I don't think too many other people have commented on this, how unusual it is to be in front of you on a Wednesday afternoon and early evening. The most disappointing thing to me is that it means that tomorrow is not Friday, which I sort of always looked forward to, was I would get through these public hearings before the Planning Commission and know that tomorrow is Friday, and now tomorrow is Thursday, of course. And it's a bit of a disappointment, but
it is.
Well, we'll never miss Thursday night football again.
And that is true, and that's important. I can,
very important.
I can appreciate that as well. I don't think the NFL's, I don't think ever, maybe during COVID, played on Wednesday. I know they play Monday, Saturday, Thursday, but I don't think they play on Wednesday. So I think we've avoided conflict with the NFL. For the application that was just introduced by Mr. Whitehouse, and one thing I did want to note, and it's a minor housekeeping item, but if the 10 letters from the public that Mr. Whitehouse was referencing are the same 10 that I saw, there's actually only 9, and I'm not trying to somehow affect due process for the public, but the one at the very bottom of the screen, the very first one, actually it was filed by Ben and Julie Moses, and unfortunately for them, their letter got cataloged within this public hearing application, and clearly they intended it to apply to a different application. So I believe there's only 9 that relate to this. But again, and who knows, maybe that letter should be moved to the other file so that the Moseses get credit for where they wanted that letter to be filed.
Something that was for a hearing months ago.
Oh, well, unfortunately, that ship may have sailed then. But, for this application, again, I am representing Ocean One Holdings, LLC, which is the applicant and owner of the property that you see on the screens around the room. With me this evening are the 2 principals from Ocean One Holdings, and they are sitting in the very back, Joel Sens and Chris Khalil. And also sitting in the back, I believe, is DJ Hughes, a face that you all recognize as a professional engineer and senior traffic engineer with Davis, Bowen, and Friedel. As was indicated by Mr. Whitehouse when he introduced the application, there was a project book filed as part of the materials, and we asked that be made part of the record this evening. As important, when Mr. Whitehouse introduced the application, the acreage is part of course, of the ordinance. And when you look carefully at that, you will see that the acreage that is part of this afternoon's application relates to a little over 60, just under 65 acres, 64.8 acres of land, which amounts to the frontage along Route 16 and Route 1. Of course, Route 1 running left to right on the screens, and Route 16 going up and down, top to bottom on the screens around the room. As I commented on the road change for Route 16, or rather Route 30 at its intersection with Route 16, I'll note that I don't believe the Route 16 changes names at this intersection, but Route 16 does change its name when it gets to the town of Milton, because it's Broadkill Road in front of this property, and when it reaches Kemp's Liquors, or actually, I'm sorry, when it reaches the Route 5, I believe it is, where Food Lion is located, it changes its name to the Milton-Ellendale Highway.
This is just a source of endless fascination for you.
It has, as you know, for the many years you've been there, it has always fascinated me.
Never fail to point it out to us.
I never do. Again, this application, you can see the proposed zoning line, and this will take on more significance as I present the balance of this application, and there's a slide at the end which will show even better the significance of that zoning line. The 64.8 acres is, of course, where the cursor is located. The remainder of the property, which is almost 51 acres or 50.7 acres, would remain with its current AR1 zoning designation. The last application, as I just referenced, was certainly a property that was located on Route 16, just to the west of the town of Milton. This property is also located along Route 16, but of course on the eastern side outside of the town of Milton. And I'm certain that everyone is familiar with this intersection of Route 1, Coastal Highway, and Route 16, the Broadkill Road. But in case anyone that's listening is not, immediately across the street from this property would be the Rookery Golf Course, or Rookery South, I believe was its name at one point. Of course, right now this location is also unmistakable because DelDOT has a construction project that is currently underway at this location as it's installing a grade-separated interchange for Route 1 to go over top of Route 16 or Broadkill Road. This next slide is, of course, a Google Earth image showing the property. The property is located where the cursor is located, there at the corner of 1 and 16. And I wanted to briefly talk about some of the uses that are in the area. Of course, I mentioned the Rookery Golf Course that you can see on the screens directly across Route 1 on the eastern side. Immediately to the south of the property is the Milton Napa Auto Parts store. To the west of the property, there's an assemblage of lands that is within an agricultural preservation district, and the Smith Landing campground is situated right along the river, as you can see here. As you continue to travel on Route 16 west, headed towards the town of Milton, at its intersection with Reynolds Road, you can see the structures that are here. Those structures would include the Lockwood Design and Construction Office. There's also a self-storage facility immediately adjacent to that. And next to that is the Frantic Frets Music and Antique Store, which has to be one of the best named businesses in all of Sussex County. And next to that is Fuel Automotive, which is an automotive repair, as its name would indicate. North of Route 16 and in close proximity to this site, where the cursor is located, is the Eagle's Nest facilities. And I know the Commission is likely familiar with, but the uses that are at that site include, of course, a church. There is also the preschool, elementary, and middle school campuses for Delmarva Christian School. And then just to the north of that is the Deep Branch Family Campground use. And between where the church is located and where the Deep Branch Family Campground is located, there is a proposed assisted living facility. This Planning Commission has approved a preliminary site plan for that assisted living facility, and it is working its way, I understand, towards a final site plan approval. Moving to the northeast side of Route 1, almost directly across from the Rookery Golf Course, is a GR subdivision known as Grants Way. And just to the east of the Rookery Golf Course is a subdivision known as Woodfield Preserve. As you can see in looking at the aerial imagery, there are presently no improvements that are on this property. There at one point in time was a farmhouse, but now that is no longer there, and the property is used for agricultural purposes. As I just described, this property is within an area where there's a diverse amount of uses, as you can see just in looking at the aerial imagery, ranging from various businesses to schools, golf courses, churches, to campgrounds, certainly agricultural areas, and fewer residential areas than many of the applications that come in front of this Planning Commission. Certainly there are individual residences along 16 and some of the roads that come off of 16 and Route 1 that are nearby, but there are only the two residential communities that I mentioned that are in direct close proximity, which are, of course, Grants Way and Woodfield Preserve. And I'll come back to that point near the end of my presentation. In looking at the zoning map, and again, I zoomed out of that to help the Commission and public gain a better understanding of the Route 1 corridor in this area. You can see, of course, that many of the items we just talked about correspond with their zoning designation. Of course, the 2 campgrounds would not show up on a zoning map, as those are conditional uses, so they would not show up as a different color on this zoning map. One other note about when you look at this zoning map is that you can see that the zoning map is consistent with the common sense of this situation, but also consistent with sound land use planning, as it's fairly common to have commercial ventures and activities and zoning along intersections where you have a primary road or route like Route 1 intersecting various roads. And if you start at the top of the screen, Route 1 running diagonally from the top left corner down to the bottom right, but here in the upper left-hand corner, that's, of course, the intersection of Route 1 with Route 5. And you can see there's a C1 commercially zoned property located there. When we travel down to the next area that's shown in red, that's another C1 parcel at the Deep Branch Road intersection with Route 1. Many of you have probably stopped and gotten gas at the slowest gas pumps that exist on planet Earth, at the Valero that exists there. It will take you an extraordinary amount of time to get gas if you stop there. Just beyond that, of course, there's some auto repair businesses, Snookies, et cetera. The next area that is, you can see there is some C1 that's associated with the Eagle's Nest facilities that I mentioned a moment ago. But as you continue south on Route 1, this next area where there is red on the commercial zoning on both sides of Route 1, both the east and west sides there, that's the intersection of Route 1 and Hudson Road, and on both north and south and on the east and west side of Route 1, there is commercial that is shown there. We've now moved off the screen. If I zoomed out any further, it wouldn't have been helpful at all. But one of the next intersections is Eagle Crest Road. There is commercial zoning there. And of course, then the intersection after Eagle Crest Road is Cave Neck Road, or Route 88. And in the past, there's a number of commercial zonings that exist at that site. And of course, within the past 3 years, the county has approved 2 more change of zone requests at Cave Neck Road along Route 1. A change of zone for C3 for Chapel Farm, known as CZ 1982. Again, that was for C3, as is being applied for here. And then just south of Cave Neck Road, there was a C2 application designated as change of zone 1916 that was filed by Alice Robinson. And those are the zonings that exist. And if we look at the future land use map, it reflects that same general land usage that you just saw on the zoning map. Those 2 maps obviously correspond. This property is shown here. It's outlined in yellow with, again, that beigeish or tan color. And that, of course, is the developing area. You can see where the red locations are commercial designations. And as we mentioned, or I mentioned within the last application, you can see the town of Milton would be shown as a town center, which is part of that darker beige or brown coloring that's on the maps. As the Commission is aware from the many applications that you see every, I almost said Thursday, every other Wednesday, the Chapter 4 is the county's future land use plan. And the comprehensive plan itself says that the future land use chapter or plan is the most influential part of the comprehensive plan. It's why this body exists and why this body makes recommendations about these matters to County Council. In the introductory paragraph where it says that Chapter 4 is the most important part, the future land use plan is the most important part of a comprehensive plan, there are 7 bases that the future land use plan was developed using. And those 7 bases are each assigned their own bullet point. The 4th bullet point states that Sussex County's future land use plan is based upon the following: encouraging tourism and other responsible commercial and industrial job providers to locate and invest in the county. As the future land use plan seeks to encourage commercial and industrial job providers to invest in Sussex County, the Commission and Council look to the future land use map, which is part of Chapter 4, to see what locations has the county designated as areas growth areas where it would be appropriate for those uses to occur. As you can see on the screens that are around the room, one of the properties that received that growth area designation as a developing area is the property that is the subject of this afternoon's application. And it makes sense that this property would be within a growth area, within a developing area of Sussex County for a number of reasons. First, of course, this property is at the location of a major intersection within Sussex County. DelDOT classifies Route 1 as an other principal arterial, and Sussex County zoning code classifies Route 1 as a major arterial roadway. Setting aside what DelDOT says, what the code says, universally, everyone would recognize that Route 1 is one of the three primary north-south corridors, not just in Sussex County, but in the state of Delaware for transportation. Similarly, Route 16 is another primary road within Sussex County. It's one of the main east-west corridors. And as I mentioned during the last hearing, Route 16, Broadkill Road in this section, is designated by DelDOT as a major collector. So we have a property that's located at the intersection of roads that not only colloquially does everyone recognize as major roadways, but both DelDOT and the county have recognized these roadways and given them designations that are significant and show their importance. If all of that weren't enough, DelDOT is presently spending more than $30 million to create a grade separated intersection at this important location. In addition, this is similar to the CPCN map that we looked at for the last application, but you can see that central water is available through Artesian Water Company, and central sewer is available through Artesian Wastewater Management. And again, that's the cross-hatching that, if you look carefully, you can see goes both ways. It has both the tan color and the bluish color that's on the screens. Within the comprehensive plan, the developing area is described as a growth area where in selected areas and at appropriate intersections, commercial uses should be allowed. There's a sentence, and then it picks up again and says, portions of the developing areas with good road access and few nearby homes should allow for business and industrial parks. The section that talks of the comprehensive plan that talks about the developing area then goes on to state with respect to infrastructure that central water and sewer facilities are strongly encouraged in developing areas. All of those features that I just mentioned as being part of the developing area within the comprehensive plan are an apt description of this property and the purpose of this application. When you look at Table 4.5-2 in the comprehensive plan, again, identifying applicable zoning districts to each of the comprehensive plan categories, the C3 heavy commercial zoning district is an applicable zoning district in the developing area developing areas that are on the 2045 future land use map. As C3 is an applicable zoning district pursuant to the comprehensive plan, it is again important to look at the purpose of the C3 zoning district. The Sussex County Code states that the purpose of the C3 heavy commercial zoning district is generally intended for larger scale auto-oriented retail and service businesses along major arterial roads that serve local and regional residents as well as the traveling public. In addition to most commercial uses found in this zone, automobile, truck, recreational vehicle, and boat sales, rental, and major repair facilities may also be located in this district. Like this application's consistency with the description of developing areas in the comprehensive plan, the application is consistent with the purpose of the C3 zoning district, as the property is certainly along major arterial road under Sussex County's definition and DelDOT's definition. And this application is intended to serve local and regional residents as well as the traveling public. The comprehensive plan, future land use map, and zoning code, as the Commission is well aware, are how Sussex County views land use and the structure it uses to make land use decisions. Every 5 years, the Office of State Planning Coordination publishes the state strategies for state policies and spendings regarding how the state views land use. On the state strategies map, this property is designated as being within level 3. And when you look at this summary within the state strategies for level 3 with respect to the Office of State Planning, it states this level is favorable for longer-term planning in anticipation of future development, which makes it a good area for master planning activities. In addition, when you look at this summary in level 3, every one of the various agencies that contributes to the Office of State Planning coordination policies and practices has a summary section. When you look at the DelDOT summary section, it states that the priorities in the level 3 areas are for DelDOT to focus on regional movements between towns and other population centers, which certainly is an apt description of this portion of Route 1 between Milford to the north, Milton to the immediate west, and then, of course, the Lewis-Rehoboth corridor as you travel further south. That summary in the DelDOT section goes on to state, with respect to level 3 strategies, that it's DelDOT's intention to focus first on level 1 and level 2 areas, and then after that's concluded to focus on level 3 areas, which certainly makes logical sense. But I would note, of course, that with respect to level 3 area, this level 3 area, as I mentioned, the state's already spending tens of millions of dollars to enhance the grade separated and create the grade separated intersection for this location. With that background on the comprehensive plan, the requested zoning classification, and the state strategies, I did want to provide a few details. Again, this is more for the legal side of this to make sure that we check all those boxes, but the property does, again, meet the height, area, bulk requirements. In this, for the C3 zoning district, the minimum is 1 acre, which certainly that minimum is met. It has to be a minimum of 75 feet wide. That is met at a minimum of 100 feet deep. Again, with the location of this property and the size of it, certainly all other setback and building requirements can readily be met. The primary portion of the property does not contain wetlands. If we were to look at if you look closely on maps, DENREC's wetland feature does show what may be a wetland area right at the very southern tip or portion of the property. As part of any site plan review process, of course, and any site plan creation, should this application be successful, those wetlands would, of course, be formally delineated, and then the requirements that are found within Sussex County's resource buffer protection would be applied and followed, and the Planning Commission would get to review that, of course, as during any site plan review for this application. Just like with that wetland analysis, the primary portions, the majority of the property is not in a floodplain, as it's in Zone X, representing areas outside of the 500-year floodplain. Again, that small area where the cursor is located, there is potential for a portion of that to be within an AE designated portion of the floodplain. Again, that would not, given its location, it would not impact any use or development of the property. There are no Chapter 89 source water protection areas on the property, as there are no wellhead protection areas, nor does the property contain any excellent groundwater recharge areas. The property is all shown on the groundwater recharge maps as being within fair and good areas. And as I mentioned a moment ago, central water and sewer are available through Artesian Resources. And I'm going to, at this time, hand a willing and able letter, if I may, to Mr. Whitehouse. We received this yesterday, but it confirms Artesian Resources' willingness and ability to provide central water and sewer, to this site. As is the case with these types of applications, a service level evaluation request was sent to DelDOT. Mr. Whitehouse referenced it when he introduced the application. And oftentimes when the Planning Commission sees these change of zone applications, just as occurred within the last application, one of the more typical responses that you see from DelDOT is that they recommend that the change of zone be considered without the benefit of a traffic impact study, because until there's a final site plan and a final use, it would be premature to consider traffic for the site. However, when DelDOT responded to the service level evaluation request in this, and again, these are all documents that are in the record, the SFR report indicated that DelDOT, through its ongoing conversations with the developer, I'll mention it in a moment, but there have been longstanding ongoing conversations, knew some things about this project and potential uses, and determined that with the size acreage involved, that a traffic impact study would be a requirement for this because it would have a major impact on traffic in the area. Within the project book materials, there is a traffic impact study review letter that was originally dated and originally produced by DelDOT on September 27th, 2023. It was just recently updated by DelDOT, and in fact, it was distributed the day after Christmas, December 26th, 2023, and I know that that's in the online file. That certainly did not make our project book, which had already been filed, but it is within the online packet materials. And the review letter clarified the maintenance of the proposed service road and proposed on and off ramps that I'll go over in a moment, and clarified that they would be the state's responsibility moving forward. By way of a little bit of background and history, in 2019, when Ocean One Holdings acquired the property, the entirety of the property was 120 acres, but during or shortly after its acquisition of the property, of course, DelDOT acquired 4.5 acres in the northeast corner of the property as part of the grade separated intersection improvements. During those discussions and preceding those discussions, there have been ongoing discussions about the potential uses of this property by my client with DelDOT. This is not something that my client walked into lightly. They have been looking at this property for years, investigating possibilities and potential uses, and they have been interacting with DelDOT on a fairly regular basis for probably more than 5 years regarding potential uses of the site, potential access from Route 16 and Route 1 to the site. And again, this was done for a number of reasons, but certainly the intent was so that this could be sort of a master planned corner where DelDOT's not going to do an improvement, spend more than $30 million creating this grade separated intersection, and then somebody has to go back and rework the entirety of that. And the developer wanted this to be their potential uses for the site to be incorporated in to as much as possible into that design and process. And of course, this helps to demonstrate that this is something that has taken a lot of time. There's been a great deal of thought and planning that has gone into this. Certainly my client has dedicated a lot of time, but DelDOT has as well, looking at various possibilities and options in this matter over the last 5+ years. Tonight's zoning application is, of course, the next step in that process. And I'm sure everyone is familiar with the project, but for the record, DelDOT identifies it as HEP SC SR1 and Route 16 Grade Separated Intersection Project. This is straight from the DelDOT website for the project. You can, of course, see the property that we're here tonight is located where the cursor is located on the screens, and you can see the lanes and the various other construction elements that are in improvements that DelDOT is currently constructing. In addition to the two-dimensional view, DelDOT provided a three-dimensional rendering of this overpass. You can, of course, see that Route 1 travels over top of Route 16, or Broad Kill Road, which is underneath it. The property that we are here on this afternoon or evening is the property here on the left-hand side of the image where the cursor is located. When the Commission looks at the Traffic Impact Study Review Letter, I did want to ask that the Commission keep two things in mind. First, the Traffic Impact Study Review Letter is a proposed concept. The developer has no contracts, no letters of intent with anyone. That's a conceptual vision that says these are potential uses if this zoning classification were approved. So there is no hard and fast, this is what's going to be there at this point in time. I heard Mr. Whately mention it in the first public hearing, that in a change of zone application, anything that's a permitted use within that zoning classification, the C3 zoning classification, is a potential use for that site. But of course, no one can study traffic in a vacuum, and so certain uses were designated. And again, those are the uses. My client's vision for this property is a retail and entertainment center complex for not only for the local residents and the regional residents, but the many tourists that travel along Route 1 each year and come to Delaware. The second thing about, or item of the traffic impact study review letter that I wanted to note is that that traffic impact study review letter relates to the entirety of the parcel. It has different sections, but that traffic impact study review letter is intended to apply to the entirety of that now 115 or so acre parcel, and it takes into account as if that entire parcel were developed, and we are here tonight on just a portion of that property. I know the Commission's familiar with this, but one of the key components or features of those traffic impact study review letters is the off-site requirements that the developer has. And I'm going to run through those very briefly here. And again, this is the same image that we started with respect to the zoning line. And I've asked Davis, Bowen, and Friedel to add in some of these features that are going to be required as off-site improvements should the application be successful. Of course, there are the typical DelDOT Development Coordination Manual entrance and frontage improvements that all developers and projects have to go through. The next one, though, is the design and construction of a service road between Broadkill Road and the southerly limits of the property. And that service road will have to be built to state standards, and then it will be dedicated to public use. For this property and for the property to the south. So the service road would start at Route 16 and extend all the way to the southern boundary of the property. And this property immediately to the south of the applicant's property is, of course, that Napa Auto Parts store that I referenced near the beginning of the presentation. I would note that a service road is required at this location because Route 1 is included within DelDOT's corridor capacity preservation program. The second requirement that was in this TIS review letter is the design and construction of a dual lane roundabout as the property's access point comes off of Route 16, and you can see the cursor is located almost immediately adjacent to that proposed dual lane roundabout. This would require a slight relocation of ramp C so that ramp C would be incorporated and go through that as the access point to Route 1. The off-site improvements also include an on and off ramp to and from the service road to Route 1 as a connection point. There would also be the requirement of an all-way stop-controlled intersection with exclusive roads for the service road where it intersects with Route 1. There would also be requirements of traffic signal installation and agreements at two intersections created by the grade separated interchange. And again, those would be up here. And there's also approximately $105,000 contribution to the traffic signal revolving fund for a potential future traffic light at Zion Church Road along Route 16. The last requirement is closure of the third median south of the Route 16 intersection on Route 1. And again, that's just to prevent crossover traffic from one side of Route 1 to the other, but that would be part of the developer's responsibility for this. So this slide, and again, Mr. Wheatley may caution me or remind the public that tonight's application is not a site plan review, so I am not presenting a site plan for the Commission to consider. This is simply a better and hopefully easier way to understand the off-site improvements that DelDOT is requiring. Again, with the service road that would ultimately become a state road, and that amendment we talked about would require it to be, the amendment to the TIS review letter would require that to be state maintained then after it's dedicated to the site. When you add up all the areas for the service road, the roundabout, and the on and off ramps to Route 1, and of course the service road extends down to the southern boundary of the property, all of those areas total 7.8 acres, or almost 8 acres of the site. And as I mentioned when I began my presentation, that the significance of where that zoning line was drawn, I would show in a future slide. This is the slide I was referring to. You can see that with the acreage that's included, that allows for there to be adequate room for this service road. And again, this is one rendition of the service road. We know the beginning point of the service road, and we know the ending point of the service road. What happens to that service road in this section is probably going to be up to certain design details in the future. But this is one potential concept, and to help everyone see what that potential concept could look like, you can see there are various pad sites that are shown. There's some stormwater management features. Again, none of that's been engineered. That is solely a conceptual plan that may exist. And that's also part of the significance, and this is certainly for the benefit of anyone who's listening and not familiar with the process. Tonight is not a site plan as we see on the screen, site plan review as we see on the screen right now. But if the application is successful, there would be a site plan review process, just like the Planning Commission conducted at the outset of this meeting, where the potential uses and buildings would be evaluated. The Commission and the Planning and Zoning staff carefully evaluate all site plans to make sure that the use is appropriate, that there are agency approvals, that parking requirements, and all the other various features and components of the zoning district have been addressed. But certainly that is not the purpose of tonight's application. The question that the Planning Commission has in front of it this evening is whether or not to make a recommendation to Sussex County Council on whether this part of the property, this 64.8 acres, is located at the intersection of Route 1 and Route 16, is an appropriate location for C3 zoning. Earlier, I reviewed what the state strategies says about Level 3 and how it's appropriate for areas with long range and master planning. And as I've described a little bit here this evening, that long range and master planning is what has been occurring for the last several years during various discussions with DelDOT, including the discussions that ultimately led to the TIS review letter that's part of the record here this evening. One of the most common criticisms, and it might even be the most common criticism that the Planning Commission hears for land use applications, is that the Commission, on behalf of with respect to subdivisions, or County Council with respect to conditional uses and RPCs, approves these things, and then it takes years for DelDOT or the developer to catch up with traffic improvements for those projects. And so the complaint is, of course, that you often hear pleas from members of the public. You need to stop approving things because DelDOT has to catch up with all of those things. Tonight's application is certainly different than that. Tonight's application is the opposite order. The grade separated intersection that was shown in the rendering is presently under construction and would be constructed by the time any plans could come forward on this. So this is the type of responsible growth that you often hear people ask for, where the road improvements are going to precede the improvements that would come with respect to any site plans for the change of zone application. I also reviewed during my presentation the comprehensive plans reference to and description of developing areas. And significantly, within the comprehensive plans language, it talks about selected areas, and again, this is the comprehensive plans words, at appropriate intersections, commercial uses should be allowed. It also talks about portions of the developing areas with good road access and few nearby homes should allow for business and industrial parks. And the intended use of this property is in the nature of a business park or commercial park, as it's that retail family center business. But when we were looking at the outset at the Google Earth image and looked at the nature of the surrounding area, consistent with the references in the comprehensive plan, there were few nearby homes. And that's one of the things that makes this an appropriate location. You have the infrastructure improvements that exist with respect to traffic, but there's not a number of homes that immediately surround this and are adjacent to this property, similar to the first application that you heard, the first public hearing that you heard this evening, where you can create conflict between residential uses and non-residential uses when those two things have occasion to interact. And that's why the comprehensive plan talks about locations like this, and part of what makes this an appropriate zoning district. Setting that aside, if you set that aside, this application is still consistent with how the comprehensive plan describes developing areas. As you may recall, it talked about intersections, and this is certainly a busy intersection in Sussex County. It talks about areas with good road access. This application and this property will have excellent road access at an intersection where DelDOT's currently spending tens of millions of dollars to create a grade separated interchange. The developer, of course, would create a service road that would ultimately be dedicated to the state and become a state road. During the outset of this public hearing, when Mr. Whitehouse introduced this application, he referenced the 10 letters, and it's actually 9 as I referenced those letters. And I think it's significant. I don't always comment on this, but I think it's significant that of those 9 letters, 5 of them are letters of support in the file. And I wanted to emphasize that for 2 reasons. First, the Commission doesn't often see that on a change of zone application of this nature. But second, it also helps to demonstrate how this application is appropriate locally, regionally, and of course for the traveling public. Terminology straight from the purpose of the C3 zoning district. The letters include a letter from Representative Stell Parker Selby, of course, who represents the Milton area. And there's additional support locally from the Milton Chamber of Commerce, which has an email letter that's in the file. And more regionally, from the Kent-Sussex Leadership Alliance, from Southern Delaware Tourism, and the Sussex Economic Development Activity or Action Committee. Again, this shows that from the local Milton Chamber of Commerce to Southern Delaware Tourism, this application and the purpose of this application aligns with what's within the comprehensive plan, and members and groups of the public have come out to support that purpose as reflected in their letters of support. For all of these reasons, my client asks that the Planning Commission recommend to County Council that this change of zone application be approved. I do have a set of proposed findings of fact for this application that I will hand to Mr. Whitehouse and Mr. Robertson, and myself, my client, and Mr. Hughes are available to answer any questions that the members of the Commission may have.
All right, sir. We thank you, and we'll see if anyone has any questions for you, and we'll start with Mr. Collins.
So you don't have any specific plans, no specific businesses lined up for this particular property. It could be anything for commercial use. Just you've already said that for the record. I'm just restating it. And, for example, we're not promising the people of the good people of Sussex County a Trader Joe's or a Costco. We have no idea what will be there, right?
As much as it would delight members of my family to make that promise on the record, I cannot do so.
Thank you.
I have no questions.
No other questions.
I'm sorry.
Brother, you're up.
I have no questions at this point. Mr. Collins pretty much
Okay.
went on with it.
All right. Mr. Mears?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Whitehouse?
Not for me, thank you. Just to announce, if I could, though, Mr. Chairman, there was an
Yes.
additional comment received late this afternoon,
Oh,
so
okay.
if I can circulate paper copies,
All right.
and as Mr. Hutt has not seen that, then I'm happy to share a copy with him too. So my apologies, it's just been printed now and
Hot
circulated.
off the press. Okay. All right. Counselor, anything?
Just a question, and I'm sorry, Mr. Hutt, if you went through this. Did it go through Plus? Did this one? At this stage, or is there?
It did not because
they're waiting to see.
the requested zoning classification is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
And thus it doesn't qualify for Office of State Planning Coordination to review it. I would note, of course, that a site plan would be required if it exceeded 50,000 square feet, would then be required to go through the plus review process.
Okay, that's what I thought, and we were looking just to make sure, but I just wanted to make sure we weren't missing something. So, okay, thanks. That's all the questions I had.
Okay, thank you. Staff, anything down here? No? All right, all right. Strutt, if you'll take a seat nearby, we'll see if there's anybody here that has an interest in your application. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of change of zone number 1993 Ocean One Holdings LLC? Yes, sir, in the back.
Scott Thomas, Executive Director for Southern Delaware Tourism. Thank you, PandZ Commission, for the opportunity to speak tonight. As you know from our letter, Southern Delaware Tourism supports the change in zoning request for hearing number 1993. Southern Delaware Tourism, we work to increase overnight year-round visitation to Sussex County. As you all are aware, right there with agriculture, tourism is the major economic engine in Sussex County. So future opportunities with respect to tourism are large. And we believe, in addition to promoting visitation, we support projects and opportunities like the one that this request presents. With the opportunities comes new entertainment and gathering options, some for existing audiences, those who are already traveling here, those who live here to add to the quality of life, but also new opportunities for new visitors to come here. We like this because it is in a location, as previously stated, that is situated within pending DelDOT project, a major DelDOT project, with a grade separation of the intersection of Route 1 and Route 16 and the service roads there, where it can adequately support such development. Thank you.
All right, sir, we thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Karen Falk, and I'm the Executive Director of the Milton Chamber of Commerce. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak on the behalf of the Chamber this evening. So I'd like to go ahead and read a letter that I submitted and make it public. Okay. This evening, I'm speaking on the behalf of the Milton Chamber of Commerce to express the support of the proposed Ocean One Holding LLC project. Our Chamber represents the Milton and Harbison region of Sussex County, Delaware. This improvement and this initiative holds great potential to significantly enhance our local economy, generate employment opportunities, and infuse a renewed sense of vitality to our region. This project location is strategically located on Coastal Highway, away from our historic district, and neighboring to an already existing commercial zoned property. South of the existing property is an abundance of land purchased by DelDOT under the Wetland Mitigation Program, and that cannot be developed. DelDOT spearheaded this opportunity and this initiative to protect natural resources, including our beloved Barkill River. Economic development is a cornerstone for the prosperity of any community. The introduction of this project will undoubtedly stimulate economic growth with retail and entertainment options and attract additional entrepreneurial opportunities, increase consumer spending, and foster a dynamic business environment. This, in turn, will contribute to a broader tax base, enabling our community to invest in essential services and infrastructure. Moreover, the establishment of this project is poised to create numerous jobs opportunities for our residents. the direct employment generation by new businesses coupled by the potential indirect employment in related sectors will serve to alleviate unemployment rates and enhance the overall financial well-being of our community members. Job creation is not only the means of supporting individuals and families, but also a catalyst for community empowerment. Beyond economic benefits, this project will foster a vibrant and engaging atmosphere. Additionally, by providing diverse retail options, it will cater to the varied needs and preferences of our community, reducing the necessity for residents and visitors to travel elsewhere for their needs. Taking a perspective on tourism, there are so many people that travel from north to south on this, and it not only impacts where we live, but also people who are traveling throughout Delmarva. Many of the people that travel down Coastal Highway will run into commercially zoned areas, including this opportunity, enabling them to stop off and get their basic needs along with our local residents. In conclusion, the Milton Chamber of Commerce wholeheartedly endorses this project as a vital step towards securing a prosperous and thriving future for our region. We believe it will not only bolster our economic landscape and employment opportunities, but also contribute to the overall well-being of our cherished communities. Our region that we represent is from the Delaware Bay inland. So you can see that right now, we only have one grocery store. We don't have a lot of retail options. We don't have a lot of store opportunities. So this would be something that will allow people to get the resources without even entering the highway and leaving their zone. Thank you for the consideration and our perspective on this matter. The Milton and Harbison region is investable. We are confident that the establishment of this commercial area will be a valuable investment for the future of our communities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else like to speak in favor? Yes, ma'am.
Just real quick, hit the button again. Yeah, there you go.
Got it? My name is Karen Sposato. I have been a proud resident and active community member of Milton, Delaware for the past 30 years. When I heard about this amazing development opportunity, I thought, this is great. Finally, Milton gets its time to shine. Ever since I moved to the Milton area, all the action, attraction, and attention was focused on the Lewis and Rehoboth areas. Milton always seemed to be like the last place for excitement or a reason to visit as a destination getaway. With the influx of folks from all over and the building of housing communities, along with the healthcare facilities growing, now is the time to elevate our region. With the addition of this project, it will enhance living with much needed convenient shopping, entertainment, lodging, and vacation destination, and possibly more. The future is full of opportunities to grow and flourish with this new development on the horizon. I'm in favor 100% for marvelous Milton to finally get its time to shine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else like to speak in favor? All right then, is there anyone here that would like to speak in opposition to what are we talking about here? Change of zone number 1993, Ocean One Holdings. Yes, sir.
My name is Nate Okada. I have had a property in Sussex County about 25 years ago, 25 years.
Okay.
And I acquired this property right across the street from this development about 5-6 years ago.
Okay.
Since then, I have given up 150 feet of the frontage to Delta. First, it started as 10 feet. Then they increased it to 15 feet. My property touches the Brock Hill and Jefferson, and I plan to retire there, renovate and retire in about 5 years. So I don't know the people who would support this project would like to order something, and when the time comes to open the package, it's totally different. I would like to have the Commission consider a requirement for the buffer zone to go with the heavy commercial district to have heavy vegetation in place so that the people on the Brock Hill Road is not affected from the noise, sight, such a thing. If such a imposed requirement can be achieved, it will be similar to something like the chicken house requirement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, who else would like to speak in opposition?
And Mr. Chairman, we can modify the height of the lectern.
Yeah,
so
we can bring the lectern to you. Hang on.
I got it. Can you hear me?
Yep, well, hang on
Okay,
just
great.
a minute. We're going to see you, too.
Oh, it's going down. It's cool.
Yeah.
I had no idea that thing.
Well, that county council thinks of everything, don't they?
Thank you.
Yeah, trust me, they didn't think of it. Yeah, it was probably somebody sued us, I guess.
Hi, my name is Monique Fitzhugh, and I live in Milton. I live on Coastal Highway, right across the street from this planned development of sorts. And while I welcome industry, tourism, places where people can work, can get shopping instead of just going to Food Lion, I think right now, since there is no set plan for this development, there isn't. It could be, I read, a theme park, a water park, a convenience store, a gas station. There is no set design for this property. And I feel that if you approve going from agriculture to heavy commercial, and you're opening up Pandora's box. And once that box is open, you cannot close it. Anything can go in that spot. Anything, a strip club, a restaurant, whatever. You're opening up Pandora's box if you approve zoning before there's a plan in place for that property. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Okay, anyone else like to speak in opposition? Okay, Rich? Yeah.
Good evening. Can I have assistance? I have 4 slides I wanted to use as a visual aid. Thank you, Ash.
Can we keep this?
I'm sorry?
Will we need to?
I'll get it. I'll retrieve it. Yep. Good evening. Chairman Wheatley, good to see you. Commissioners, county staff, counselor, Happy New Year to all of you. My name is Rich Barrasso. I live in Milton. I am presenting on behalf of the Sussex Alliance for Responsible Growth, also known as SARG. I want to start my comments. Am I good to go here? I want to start my comments, and I want to reference a presentation that DelDOT made back in November of 2022. And this is when DelDOT came down to the Lewis Public Library, and they shared with the public their plan for the $500 million that will be spent from the Nassau Bridge up to the Kent-Sussex County line. Series of improvements. During the presentation, there were 2 statements that were very clear up front. And forgive that I will read these, but The purpose of their plan was to formalize a comprehensive 20-year corridor vision that identifies access management and future roadway improvements and informs land use decisions with the goal of preserving the traffic capacity of SR1. And a number of assumptions went into the capacity that they were building in. One of those primary assumptions was that everything east of Route 1 would be low density. And there would be higher density on the west side. They also indicated that the plan was not intended to encourage development or growth that is inconsistent with the Delaware strategies for state policies and spending and or the county and municipal comprehensive plan. So this is a little difficult to see, but it is an illustration, this was from the presentation, of the 14 projects that have been underway or will be underway in Sussex County over the next 6 years. As you see, 7 of those projects have been completed. The 5 in the lower right-hand corner are either under construction or planned. And this is, again, available on the Delaware or DelDOT project website. The orange box, SR1 in Route 16, is highlighted there. Couple considerations. And again, I'm going to say up front, I am not opposed to developing this property. I am not opposed to developing this property in terms of commercial and or residential development. But I want to be sure, have we addressed in the 2018 comprehensive plan how the Route 1 corridor capacity will be preserved? Is that addressed in the plan? Assuming we're going to, the state is going to invest $500 million, is it not the responsibility of the county and the Planning and Zoning Commission to plan for that development? Keeping in mind what assumptions DelDOT has made relative to the capacity, there could be 1 or 2 developments at exchanges that could swallow up every bit of the capacity that's planned in that $500 million. Has there been any work since DelDOT made the presentation in terms of their investment over the next 5 to 7 years in terms of how should we plan for development in the Route 1 corridor? If there hasn't, then there certainly needs to be, and I would hope that there would be greater land use development coordination between the county and the state in the process. The big question today is, what is the Route 1, Route 16 separated grade intersection plan capacity? Based on how that's designed today, what is the capacity? Because I think that's an indicator of what can be developed on that property. We already have concerns about the planned separated grade at Cave Neck, where 400 homes we built on the east side of Highway 1 with an undetermined amount of acreage for future development, future commercial development up front. In discussions with DelDOT, they shared that what they're planning for Cave Neck probably will not be able to handle the capacity if a certain level of commercial development takes place. The same applies here. In speaking with the State Office of Planning and DelDOT, they have concerns regarding how much any development at that intersection will fill that capacity. So today, we're not talking about the Route 16, Route 1 separated grade. We're talking about setting a precedent for what might happen in the Route 1 corridor if we don't have a plan in terms of what the capacity will afford us.
Yeah, Mr. Brass, I have to ask you something, because you keep saying we don't have a plan. We have a comp plan, and this corner is designated as developing area. We went through that. I know you and organization were very involved in that process.
Correct.
When you look at Route 1 in this area, north and south, everything around there, except for this parcel, is low-density area. Doesn't that mean we do have a plan and this doesn't set a precedent? And if this is designated as a developing area, and didn't the county coordinate with Office of State Planning Coordination and DelDOT and your group and the public and everybody else to make this a developing area?
Right.
I take issue with the fact that you're saying there's not a plan when we have one, and it says this parcel is appropriate for some sort of growth.
Right. Unlike Newcastle and Kent County, who stick to their comprehensive plan, in this county, 5 to 6 times a year, an applicant comes in with a request to change the future land use map.
Well, hang on for a second. Is that request being made in this application?
No, it's not.
That's a subject for another day, Mr. Barrasso. Let's stick to this application, and please tell us what your objection is to what's being proposed.
I don't know what is being proposed.
Yes, you do. It's being, a change of zone is being proposed.
Correct, okay. My concern is, for some reason, 2 previous speakers spoke of an entertainment complex. I lived 29 years in the Poconos, where we had 4 very large water parks. I'm familiar with the traffic that it attracts. I'm not opposed to water parks. I took my children, okay, to Kalahari and the Great Wolf, all right, and to Camelback. I loved it. I enjoyed it. Here's my point. I just want, and we're early in the game, I realize that.
Right.
I just want to make sure that we're on the record that there are concerns about will the capacity be exceeded based on the current design of that separated grade today. And in discussions with DelDOT, there are concerns based on the traffic counts that are there today and how much capacity they've built, because their original design was with the objective of safe travel on Route 1 with reasonable development, new development. And that's my primary concern.
Are those on the record comments, sir?
Yeah, do we have anything from DelDOT that states that? I mean, you're making representations about statements made by DelDOT. Do you have those statements by DelDOT? Because we have the TIS review letter in the record that doesn't seem to suggest that.
I don't have statements from DelDOT. These are conversations that I've had with DelDOT.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay? So again, in closing, my concern is whatever goes in there, will we be mindful relative to what it will generate in terms of incremental vehicle trips? And can we avoid having to come back in there in 5 to 7 years and rebuild the ramps?
And I agree, I understand your concern, and that's the great purpose and service of the PLUS process. That's DelDOT's opportunity to tell us that this particular thing is a problem, and we're not at that point yet.
Well, I would beg to differ a little bit, because we have a letter. It was revised December 26th, dated September 27th, but dated revised in December. it said that the enclosed TIS review letter this is from DelDOT, for the proposed Brittingham multi-use development, so they were looking at, even beyond just the C3, has been completed under the responsible charge of a registered professional engineer whose firm is authorized to work in the state of Delaware. They have found the TIS to conform to DelDOT's development coordination manual and other accepted practices and procedures for such studies. DelDOT accepts this letter and concurs with the recommendation. This letter has been revised to provide clarification of item 2 and 4 of the recommendations. If you have any questions concerning the letter or the enclosed review letter, please contact the person at DelDOT. So, officially, DelDOT hasn't exhibited any recommendations or objections, I should say.
In that case, I'll amend my statement to say that it's also DelDOT's opportunity to tell us it's not a problem.
Right.
Well, I'm confused. If on numerous occasions, Mr. Hutt commented in terms of we don't know what it's going to be, we have to assume it would be the highest use for C3 heavy commercial. Is that correct?
So we don't get involved in site plan reviews at this stage, as you said, because it's just a change in zone. But I think it is a safe, a reasonable point of discussion to talk about what the highest and best use is that could be there. Because, if it's a permitted use and it's C3, right, it could be that, most intensive use. And it seems like that's along the lines of what DelDOT's reviewing it for. It would be irresponsible for them to review it for the lowest possible use in C3, because that wouldn't do anybody any good.
And that's all I'm asking. On a lighter note, I would hope that something would happen there soon. I could probably retrieve any number of my golf balls that I hooked off of 18 for sure.
That fence scares me to death on Route 1 on the Rookery. I'll tell you, that's not tall enough.
I can hook it over there. Again, this is a long process. We know there's going to be, at least 2 public hearings, and I just want to make the point. When I see the non-function junction under construction right now between Beaver Dam Road and Plantation Road, and hearing that it's already obsolete, that concerns me.
Understood.
That concerns me. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely, as always.
Thank you very much.
See you.
I'm going to slide this out of here, please.
We need to take a copy of that. Just,
Okay. You can have this as well. Thanks again.
Yep, thanks.
Okay, who's next?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Donald McLam, and I have a property that joins up to the property that is being rezoned, or that we're discussing being rezoned tonight. As well.
Where's the microphone?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there you go.
There you
okay.
go.
All right, perfect.
As well as my wife's family owns all the property that is west of the proposed rezoned property. The reason why there's not houses next to this proposed property that's being rezoned is because the family has put those acreage, about 300 plus acres, in farmland preservation. And, that's giving back to the community. It won't be developed. There's no asphalt for the water to run off. There's no roofs for it to run off into the collection ponds. And they want to continue farming for a lifetime. They also, on the same property, have a campground with about 100 campers in it. And so I'm standing before you today to talk about that and our concerns and issues there, as well as the property that I own on Broadkill Road. And as I stay there, the notice of increased traffic. The gentleman before us was talking about DelDOT and their traffic studies. As you all know, there's more and more development going up on Route 16. And a lot of those individuals come to Route 1 to go south to the beach areas for employment or to go north. There's quite a bit of traffic that heads north to Dover and even further north to Wilmington to work. So I do believe that, the traffic is an issue on 16. I guess I'll get to my point. The main thing we have is essentially with the traffic and where is going to be the access. We saw some proposal earlier with a roundabout, and I'm not sure if there was still an access from Route 16 onto Route 1 Or was that going to push us into the service road and then out to Route 1 again? I don't know if DelDOT would agree or like to see that. They've already approved that grade separation as it was with the current access to Route 1. So that is a big concern for us. The other is the environmental concerns that you have when you develop something like this into a commercial, heavy commercial district, and the runoff into our Broadkill River. As they pointed out earlier, there was a, down in the bottom corner of the property, you can see there's a branch that comes up there that will have runoff that way directly into the Broadkill River. So that is another concern of ours. Lastly, I would just ask the commission, the commissioners, to, seriously think about the issues that are in front of us, whether it's the traffic, whether it's the environment, whether it's the impact on the property owner that is directly next to this property as a farm, as property that was put in farmland preservation and will continue to be.
What is the impact to that person?
I would say, runoff from the property, depending on where it goes, and what is intended to be done with the unrezoned portion of the property. Because as you notice, the AR1 piece will not have access except for the service road, which they have developed in their plan.
Right.
So what will happen with that? I would suggest to you that they will be coming back to this committee and saying, we would like to put houses there. Potentially. I mean, hey, listen, I don't know.
If it's zoned AR1, they have the right to put houses.
That's right. That's right.
So they can do that today.
That's correct. That's correct.
So.
And so, so that's one of the impacts, the runoffs.
Okay.
Of course, the peaceful enjoyment of where we have 100 campers that come to us seasonally, and we operate a business and support them. So that would be another concern that I would have, the impact of this rezoning. Okay? That's it. I would just ask you to, any questions that I would, commissioners? No?
I think so.
All right.
All right, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, who's next? Going once. Twice. Okay, anyone on the commission have any further questions? No, sir. Okay, anyone? All right then. There being none, we'll close the public hearing. We'll invite you to remain with us for the rest of the evening to see if we make a decision, or you may wish to call the office in the morning. Thanks.